All right. So I just want to say welcome to all the new members. This group is a positive Black people link up. We've been growing like gangbusters. We have a lot of new members. So I just want to welcome everybody and tell you a little bit about what this group is about. Let's see here. This is a group about making friends. You got to move view. Socializing with other positive people, emphasis on positive. It's a meetup group for Black people, but we don't discriminate on others based on race, religion, or sexual orientation. More on that later. Learning. This is a group for learning and teaching something new. It's encouragement toward better health, wealth, and relationships. And this is not a singles group, but we're working toward helping single people find somebody. Okay, but it's not a singles group. Just want to emphasize that. But I'm here. I'm all about Black love and people finding love. We do online and in-person meetups. Our next in-person meetup is a cash flow board game that is currently full. It's going to be at Harold's house. If you're on the waiting list, just remain on the waiting list, because typically what happens is a date draws closer. People may fall off and you can get in, but just because of the number of board games we have, and we're in someone's house, we can only allow but so many people in there. After that, we're doing ice skating later in January. So if you can't make the board game, but you still want to hang out and socialize, go ahead and RSVP for the ice skating ring. The limit on that is going to be 80 people, because that's how many tickets the ice skating ring can sell at that particular time. But yeah, if you want to hang out, you want to catch a vibe with the group, just go ahead and RSVP for that. If you're interested in being an event organizer and you've been to a few of our events and you kind of have a positive vibe about you, you're more than welcome. We are looking for other event hosts. So just let me know, just reach out to me. Just about different, a lot of y'all may not have realized this, but everybody kind of has a different level member that they are. Everybody who's new is pretty much, I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm a little bit of a nerd, okay? So this is our levels are based off of Star Wars. So if you're just new to the group, you're classified as force sensitive. This is a new group member and you haven't attended any meetups yet. If you attend the meetup tonight and you appear on camera and I can recognize you, your membership is going to go up to a Jedi. This is a person who's attended at least one event. A Jedi Knight is a group member who has attended multiple events and brings a good conversation or positive vibes. And a Jedi Master is a group member whose interactions with the group have been positive, routine, and masterful. And this just helps for when we have like these really high in-demand events and we're just trying to keep track of everybody. A person who's a Sith acolyte, the Sith in Star Wars are kind of like the bad guys, but y'all are bad, but it's just we do have some Sith people in the group. Sith acolyte is like the lowest level of a Sith. There's a person who's inactive in the group or who joined the group with a blurry picture or no picture. So you've been a Sith acolyte. You can easily change that by getting a picture and just getting involved. A Sith apprentice is a person who's in the group who has more no-shows than appearances. And a Sith Lord is a controversial group member. They may be someone who's mischievous, overly flirtatious, or good at riling people up. But we love everybody. We're for everybody, okay? But these are just different levels of group membership. I don't want y'all to think too much about it. Let's see here. On to the next side. Marco, can you admit people in the room? It's not letting me. I'll have to go through. Let me see if I can let Dana in. But Dana, don't want her to miss this. All right. So on to the conversation. Oh, somebody else just came in. Let them in. Sorry, y'all. On to the conversations. Dope Conversations presents Kevin Samuels. Is he bringing us together or tearing us apart? Just a little bit of context. Why are we having these relationship conversations online? And I'm going to go through this real fast also, excuse me, just because I know we have a lot of people we want to get into it. Just go ahead and mute your mic as you're coming in. Number one reason is to meet new people and see where they stand on important relationship issues. That's one of the reasons why we're having these relationship conversations online. The second reason is to learn more about the opposite sex, learn what they like, learn what they're into. The main reason, though, is, let me see if I can move this here, is to restore and encourage healthy Black relationships through engaging in conversations to see more two-parent households. That's the goal here of this conversation, y'all. So what there's any talking that anybody's doing, at least with me, that I'm doing tonight, the goal is to restore and encourage healthy Black relationships through conversation and to see more two-parent households. Okay, that's my ultimate goal. Just a little point here. For this conversation, please refrain from negative attacks on anyone's sexual orientation. I know with Kevin Samuels, there's been speculations, but the man, he said that he's heterosexual, and I think we should respect that. And also, I don't think that attacking someone's sexual orientation is not the same as attacking their talking points. I mean, his sexual orientation has very little to do about his sexual orientation. And plus, this isn't just a group with heterosexual people. We have all people from different walks of life in this group. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so now we're getting into it. This first part of this presentation is going to be the longest, and I'm going to try to power through it. But it's the environment that created Kevin Samuels from a Black male perspective. Emphasis on from a Black male perspective. You know, people may have different perspectives on how we got here to for a Kevin Samuels to emerge, but this is from a Black male perspective on what I saw and what I see in the culture that kind of brought Kevin Samuels to light. Okay, this was a slide I shared from last thing. We talked about Black people. Black people prior to the late 60s were the most married people, and then after the 60s, you see a trend here. This chart here is for Black women, but in terms of Black women likelihood to be single, as you can see, it went up to 25%. This is in early 2000, but before that, it was down to 5%. So Black people were more likely to be coupled before the 1960s than any other group of people, but something changed after the 1960s. And it was I talked a little bit about it on the last presentation here. These were some of the issues and factors that affected things. The question that I have is there a gender war, and was it planned? That'll probably be for another conversation, but it's just something to think about. Like, what changed after the 1960s? Just something I want everybody kind of take into consideration here. Let's see here. This is another chart showing kind of statistics closer to today in 2019. 50% of Black men are never married. 48% of Black women were never married, as compared to other groups, it was 34%. So as you can see, there's a real marriage crisis and relationship crisis in the Black community. Okay, so this here is some of our leaders in the Black community. And I promise y'all it's gonna get to Kevin Samuels. Just bear with me. I'm trying to bring some context to how we got here with Kevin Samuels. So this was Reconstruction, the Civil Rights era. These were some of our leaders. Let's see here. You had, and the messaging in terms of leaders was nation building over gender issues. This was the one of the primary messages that we saw from our leaders back in the day. As you're coming in, mute your mic. And people, you know, even though people had different views on different things, like you have Angela Davis here. She was a feminist and she was for women's rights, but at the end of the day, she was about nation and community first over gender issues. You had Brother Malcolm X, who's a personal hero of mine. He was really about traditional manhood and masculinity, and you can see in this picture, he's teaching about those sort of things. This is where I'm more so aligned, but at the end of the day, even though he had these certain views, he was still about community and nation first over gender issues. And you have brother here, I forget his name that quick. Somebody chime in real quick.
James Baldwin.
James Baldwin.
There we go. Thank you. James Baldwin, a writer, active in the civil rights movement. He was big on gay rights, but even before gay rights, he put nation building above his own personal issues. And believe it or not, Malcolm X and James Baldwin were friends. So was Maya Angelou. They were all friends. They all had different causes and things they believed in, but at the end of the day, they were able to come together on nation and community. That was prior to the 60s. Now, after the 60s, something began to change, okay? All of our leaders kind of started to go political. A lot of our prominent leaders became political. A lot of them died off, of course, but after the 60s and the start of the quote unquote gender war, we begin to see that a lot of our community turned political and turned to the Democrat Party. And then the Democrat Party, there was a focus on class problems over race issues, women's empowerment, immigration, LGBTQ rights. Obama was once quoted as saying, "A rising tide lifts all boats." Just chucking and jiving in general. That's what was going on after the 60s. This is not to bash the Democratic Party, but it's just to really highlight something here, and that's that there was no legislation specifically for Black men. And this, I'm going to tie it into Kevin Samuels, y'all, so just bear with me. So policies that undermine the Black man as head, and in fact, the Democratic Party seems to insinuate that there are legislation that affects Black men and the disintegration of the nuclear family. One issue that came up was the issue of the Monahan Report. This is a government study addressing the rise in poverty in the Black community. The Monahan Report, y'all can go do all y'all. I can't get too deep into it just for the sake of time, but y'all can just research this stuff. It's out there. The report concluded that the rise in matriarchal single-parent households was the main contributor for rise in Black poverty. The Monahan Report advocated for jobs for Black men and training for Black men instead of expanding the welfare state, which in the report's opinion replaced a woman's need for a man in the house. Let's see, Democrats and feminists attacked the report, said it was racist and sexist and male-centric. Let's see, policies that support single-parent matriarchal family structures continue to this day. Case in point, recently here in Georgia, there's a new program. I don't know if any of y'all heard about it, but the Inner Hands program. This is gives a $850 a month stipend, 650 Black women. Now, mind y'all, this is coming from a Black male perspective. Ladies, y'all gonna have y'all chance to kind of rebut any of this that I'm talking about, but this is a lot of things that we're seeing that brought about the rise of a Kevin Samuels in my mind. Side note, I'm not a Republican, but I'm definitely not a Democrat, but I'm not a Republican. I just want to put that out there because I kind of attacked the Democrat Party, but I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat.
You got to be careful who you listen to. You got to be careful who you listen to.
This is a Black church.
Showing me about, some guy on television just insulting women, and he's becoming popular because women are so out knowledge. And the whole bottom line is, if you want to marry a millionaire, then you got to be this kind of way to marry a millionaire. How do you sit up there and listen to somebody insult you? Is it that bad? Well, I got to try something because I got to give my hand. You can do bad all by yourself, right? You don't need a man to do bad by yourself.
That's Pastor Creflo Dollar right here in Georgia, College Park, enforcing the "what do I need a man for" narrative. Let's see here. Congregations of the Black church today are 60% women, 40% men. The margin is wider among young generations. Likelihood to attend church regularly, it's 40% for women and 25% men. And what they mean by regularly is like to do some sort of a religious activity on a monthly basis. Women are 40% more likely, not 40% more likely, but 40% of women report that they do religious activity at least one time a month versus 25% of men. This is via the Pew Research poll. Marco, how am I doing? Am I talking too fast? Should I slow down?
Nah, you're good.
All right. So what is all this about? A lot of this is about money in my mind with the Black church. We're going to see a common theme here. The rise of Black women media. Black women have, for the most part, always had platforms to express their opinions when it came to relationships. Here we see Essence Magazine, online blogs such as Madame Noir, different talk shows like The Real and Oprah Winfrey Network and Cocktail with Queens are one of the more recent ones. And all this has a start really in the 80s going into the 90s. Let's see here. Some of these media outlets that these Black women media outlets perpetuate the Black men ain't ish argument. But Black men are missing from the conversation. We never heard what Black men's view on relationships prior to recent time. So the rise of Black relationship experts. Here are a few of the men that women have trusted when it comes to relationship advice. Most male relationship experts pander to women. This is in my mind. This is coming from a male perspective, y'all. So we got Tony Gaskins here, Stephen Speaks, Derek Jackson, Steve Harvey, Franklin, I forgot his last name, but and Megan Good. We saw what happened with them recently.
Devin Franklin.
Devin Franklin. Thank you, Chelsea. Let's see here. How do I get off of this? Somebody trying to get in. My bad, y'all. My bad. I'm gonna keep it going. And it's about, a lot of it's about the money. You know, they can't upset their female audience, so it's all about the money, in my mind. So wrapping it up, what brought us here? Let's see, politics that don't support Black relationships. We talked about that on the first slide. Go ahead and mute your mic, somebody. Faith leaders who don't want to upset or hold their largely female congregations accountable, media that only gave the Black woman's view of relationship, but not the Black man's view, Black relationship experts who pander to women, a national pandemic that caused women to reevaluate life and relationships, and a viral moment, and thus the man of the hour. We're going to talk about him, Kevin Samuels. All right. So these are some of these, to me, everything that I just talked about is kind of what brought us here to having this conversation about Kevin Samuels. I got to move my little screen here. It's distracting me. Okay, so part two, what are Kevin Samuels' talking points? I'm not going to talk about every single thing that Kevin Samuels has talked about, just because, you know, we'll kind of be here all day if we did that. I'm just going to try to hit a lot of his main talking points. Let's see here. So number one, most women appear to want a high value man, but do not qualify for one. Most women callers believe they do. Women callers who call into a show. When Kevin Samuels talks about a high value man, for those of you who are unfamiliar, he's mainly talking about an economic measure of a man. He's not talking about his value system or anything like that. He's solely looking at the man's income, his usefulness to other men. There's different other factors in there, but it's not a lot about character or anything like that. He's not saying it's a good man. He's saying it's a high value man, or a man that's just a high earner, basically. Let's see, high value men. These are Kevin Samuels' arguments. High value men tend to be non-monogamous. He also ranks women by their appearance based on looks. He uses the 1 to 10 scale. And I hate to upset some women, but if y'all have an issue with this this ranking system, I've been doing it since I was a child. And I think men across the board have been doing the ranking since we were young. So the beauty standard, when he talks about height, weight, and dress size, more about that in a little bit. Sexual marketplace value, he says that men are the consumers and determine what qualities and attributes are desirable to men. But from his perspective, he's talking about high value men. He said women don't determine that. He says that men want women who are fit, feminine, cooperative. And we don't place a high emphasis on a woman's education and career. Let's see here. Another one of his talking points is that when someone attempts to hold modern women accountable, they respond with shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. He also says that modern Black women are out of order. And whenever we hear Kevin Samuels says modern, that's just a word that he for Black women, basically. Anybody who's kind of been following his content, it's basically talking about Black women whenever he says modern women. He also advocates and says that Black people need therapy. And let's see, he says that this was somebody in the group, I think it was Maisha had posted this. I'm having trouble seeing it on my end. But he says that marriage and relationships are not about love and necessity. They're not about love, but they're about necessity. This came from Maisha. She posted a comment. I thought that was insightful. And yeah, I have heard him say things like that before. And he also argues that women are too quick to bail out on relationships to the tune of 80% in terms of filing for divorce. I want to give just my opinion overall on Kevin Samuels' overall talking points. I actually agree with about 80% of what he says. That's where I'm at with it. About 80% I would agree with. But I do have some criticisms. Some of my main criticisms are sometimes he can be a bit mean-spirited. Well, he can be really mean-spirited, especially when it comes to age and it comes to a woman's weight. He's real mean. I feel like his message is a little mean-spirited and it's not productive. He has told women to go back to abusive relationships. There's a caveat to that. Whenever he gives this advice, it appears that he doesn't believe the relationship was really abusive by evidence of the woman not filing a police report. So I can't really hold his feet to the fire super heavy on that, on advocating for women to go back to abusive relationships, because he does kind of pry a little bit and ask them, like, did they file a police report and all that stuff. And a lot of times they didn't. So I think he just kind of makes assumption that it's not really an abusive relationship. Another one of my criticisms is that his beauty standard is the beauty standard that he advocates for is Eurocentric, and men's preferences varies by race and region. So especially here in the South, especially among Black women, when you talk about height, weight, and dress size, the measurements that he advocates for, most of the brothers I know, that's not really seen as desirable to us. And especially, like I said, especially among Black men, especially in the South. And a lot of times too, when he's talking about these, he's talking about like BMI and all of that stuff, that's a lot that's really Eurocentric. And I do that is a criticism I have for him. I will concede the fact though that I rarely see high value men with overweight women even here in the South. Okay, so those were my main criticisms. So this is my opinion. Is he bringing us together or tearing us apart? Now I can kind of slow this down. My answer, I think he's tearing us apart. Like I said, even though I agree with 80% of his talking points.
I wish your voice probably put tricky.
Let's see, I'm gonna mute you. I gotta mute you, Olivia. Even though I agree with 80% of his talking points, I think that his message isn't getting through to people, both men and women. I feel like even though he's saying a lot of good things, women aren't really receptive to it. And he's even, before he even started talking to women, he was talking to men, and men weren't receptive to it. Kevin Samuels spoke about wearing a suit to men. He talked about men leveling up, working hard, working 60 plus hours a week to elevate themselves. Men, before we start talking to women, men really just kind of lambasted him for that. And women aren't really listening to him. And I think that his platform it draws in like the worst people, both men and women. I mean, so like he uses the dangle of a high value man to bring delusional and disagreeable women to his platform, and he puts them on a stage. And men, he does it all. A lot of it's for entertainment. I don't really see a lot of growth happening. I mean, I kind of tune in from time to time just for entertainment, but then I click off. But I don't understand the pathology for women who call in, and I don't understand the pathology of men who continually watch. That's just me personally. I get it, it's entertainment, but I don't really see how it advances things, because people aren't growing from it. I don't think there are a minority of people who are growing from it. Okay, so what say you? Let me stop the screen share here. Marco, what do you think, man? What do you think about the presentation?